3 years ago this week, Iowa was celebrating. Nearly 2,900 National Guard soldiers were finally coming home after a year in Afghanistan.
I knew you'd
Families were waiting with signs, balloons, and shaking hands that didn't know whether to laugh or cry first.
Oh my God, you're home. I missed you so
It looked like every other homecoming you've ever seen.
I'm finally back.
Except one reunion that week still hits people right in the chest. Because it wasn't just a soldier coming home. It was a soldier coming home to the one companion who had been there in a way no one else could. And no, Uncle Sam didn't play matchmaker.
Much.
In fact, the Army sent Staff Sergeant Brian Van Fleet to one of the harshest corners of Afghanistan. For months, it was the kind of place that stripped you down to survival. No running water, no comfort. You showered with baby wipes and learned to live with dust in your mouth, sand in your clothes, and stress sitting heavy in your bones. And it was there out in that sand that Brian first saw him, a dog. Not some trained military working dog, not a pet, just one of the strays that moved in packs, weaving through the edges of camp like ghosts. In places like that, dogs are usually background noise. Survival doesn't leave a lot of room for affection. But this one was different. He kept showing up, from a distance at first, watching, waiting, and then closer. Day after day, like he'd decided something, like he'd chosen his person. Brian later said it took time to earn his trust. It wasn't instant, it wasn't cute, it was slow and careful. The dog had lived hard. He didn't hand out loyalty for free, but once that wall came down, he never left. Brian called him Odie. Odie followed him everywhere. And in a place where every day could flip from calm to chaos in seconds, that kind of constant presence meant more than words can explain. Sometimes, those dogs would even come on patrols, right alongside the soldiers, moving through danger like they belonged there. They'd witness the same tragedies, hear the same explosions, feel the same tension before a moment turned bad, and then, after the fights were over, after the shouting stopped, and the adrenaline finally let go, Odie would be there for the quiet part, the part people don't always talk about. The part where you sit with what you saw, the part where the world feels too loud in your head, even when everything around you is silent. Odie wasn't just a dog at camp. To Brian, he was comfort, something familiar, something living that didn't ask him to explain himself. And when Brian's year was up, when it was time to go home, he broke down, because leaving Afghanistan meant leaving Odie. And Brian couldn't do it. He refused to come home without him. So he did what a lot of people would call impossible. He found a way to bring a stray dog from Afghanistan back to Iowa. He worked with an agency, paid thousands of dollars, and sent word to his mom. Later, she remembered seeing the first photo, Odie lying in the sand. And she laughed through her confusion because her first thought was, wow, that is kind of an ugly dog.
I'm so glad you're home. I missed
But
you
then
so
she met him at the airport, and she understood.
I'm here, Mom. It's
Because
okay.
Odie didn't walk like a random stray. He
my
walked like a
goodness.
soldier.
Is that really you?
Like he knew exactly where he belonged. Back at Camp Dodge, Brian said it best. Odie wasn't a pet.
You're
He
finally
was part of the
home. We
team.
love you so much.
He went out on patrol. He guarded the gate. He did life with them shoulder to shoulder. Moms and wives can be supportive. They can love you with everything they have. But they weren't there in those moments. Odie was. And Brian said something that a lot of veterans understand instantly. There's no way to fully explain the companionship of a dog you've been to a combat zone with. It's not normal friendship. It's not just loyalty. It's survival side by side. and Odie helped him more than any therapy ever could.
Easy, friend. You did good. We're clear now. Just rest. Odie.
Then one day, Odie disappeared.
Odie.
He broke out of the yard and wandered off the way he used to, like the stray life was still written somewhere inside him. Brian didn't sleep. He searched all night, then all the next day, because the truth was simple. The one who truly understood him was gone, but Odie still had a soft spot for men in uniform.
Odie! 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 Odie!
Johnston police found him and called Brian.
Where is he? Is he okay? I'm on my way.
Oh, buddy. I thought I lost you. I'm so glad you're safe.
Odie came home again, and Brian had no idea that this time, the clock was already running. What started as a skin rash the previous spring began spreading inside Odie's body, into his kidneys, into his lungs. The vets didn't even know what was causing it. They couldn't explain how the dog who survived the streets of Afghanistan was now losing a battle in Iowa.
The kidney values are extremely high and the anemia is severe.
But Brian could see it, he could feel it, and eventually, he faced the kind of decision that breaks people.
Goodbye, my friend.
He couldn't watch his best friend suffer anymore. Brian said it was one of the hardest choices he'd ever made. He stayed there, holding Odie, right to the end. People like to say Brian traveled halfway around the world to rescue a dog. But the truth is, Odie rescued Brian too. He was a comfort factor, something familiar, something trustworthy. Something that grounded Brian in a world that didn't make sense. There are other dogs, but there aren't other Odies. And now, Odie rests at Camp Dodge, still close to the guys, still part of the place where he belonged, still, in a way, standing watch.